5 BTO projects launching today, including 2 under the prime location housing model with stricter conditions. Voluntary screening for tuberculosis underway at Block 2 Jalan Bukit Merah after discovery of a cluster. And with travel returning to normal in many places, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong says he hopes Japan will open up soon. Hello, you're watching The Big Story with me, Olivia Quay. Remember to subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss an episode. HDB launching a total of 4,583 BTO flats today, with 2 sites under the Prime Location Public Housing or PLH model. Let's take a closer look at the 5 housing projects in the 5 estates. The Bukit Merah project under the PLH model offers 3-room and 4-room flats across 5 blocks ranging from 29 to 48 stories. Also under the PLH model, the Queenstown site sits on Gimmo Road next to Bonavista MRT station, offering 3- and 4-room flats across 4 blocks. Not under the PLH model, the project in Toa Payoh offers 2-room flexi, 3-room and 4-room flats across 2 blocks bounded by Lorong 6 and Lorong 7. As for projects in non-mature estates, Jurong West offers 2-room flexi, 3-room, 4-room and 5-room flats across 7 blocks, all within walking distance to Jurong Lake Gardens and Lakeside MRT stations. And finally, in Yishun, buyers can choose from 2-room flexi, 4-room and 5-room flats across 5 blocks, and they'll have the shortest wait for these flats at just over 3 years. Joining me is Christine Sun, Senior Vice President of Research and Analytics at OrangeTee Tie. Good to have you back on the show, Christine. So the Bukit Merah and Queenstown projects that fall under the PLH model will almost certainly be very popular. But what should buyers be mindful of when applying for one of these flats?
These flats come under the PLH model, and owners face more stringent criteria when compared to owners of non-PLH model flats. These criteria are mainly put in place to ensure fairness to other homeowners, since when they buy PLH model flats, they get to live in prime locations and can potentially enjoy higher capital appreciation or profits when they sell their units. So buyers will need to keep in mind certain factors. For example, the MOP period for PLH model flats are longer, at around 10 years instead of 5 years before they can sell the flats or rent out the unit. And renting of the whole flat is also prohibited. Homeowners will also have to pay a certain percentage or higher of resale price or the valuation of their flats to HDB upon the sale of their flats. So this means that there is a clawback on their profits, mainly to compensate for the higher subsidy that they have enjoyed. And as well as subsequent buyers will have to meet certain criteria like some income ceiling as well. So this means that your pool of potential buyers will be reduced.
Do you expect potential buyers of, these 2 projects that fall under the PLH model, as well as, the previous 2 that were announced before? Do you expect these buyers who are interested to, apply for all of these PLH model flats in the hope, that they'll get one of them?
Yes, it's likely that those people who were not successful in the previous ballots, they will try again this time round, because there are 2 projects and they are both in very attractive locations, as well as because the launch period is actually quite close to one another. So it's still probably within their time frame in terms of preparing, maybe in terms of family planning or when they want to get married and so on.
Well, let's talk about the other 3 projects that were announced. That's in Toa Payoh, Jurong West and Yishun. Christine, do you expect a high take-up rate for them? And which one do you think will be the most popular?
Yes, if you look at all the 5 projects, I think all 5 projects are very attractive in their own ways, because they are all within walking distance of an MRT station, or surrounded by ample amenities. And most of them will have a quite high take-up rate. And if we look at the non-PLH model flats, for example, the site at Toa Payoh, although it is not near an MRT station, but we still expect a quite good take-up rate because it is within a mature estate and there are ample amenities and within good schools as well. And for the Yishun and Jurong side, both projects are in the non-mature estates and their shorter completion times or periods may compensate for the shortfall in terms of their distance to the city centre. And these two sites offer 5-room flats, which are not offered under the other projects as well. So for those people who are looking for bigger units, they'll consider these two projects. So if we look at Jurong, I think Jurong site is actually very attractive because the project commands beautiful lake views and is near an MRT station. And the project is highly popular among people who are working in Jurong, Gateway, Jurong Island, or other western parts of the island. For Yishun BTO site, it is relatively less crowded when compared to the other sites, and they may attract people who may want a more, maybe a quieter environment, and it's also near an MRT station.
Well, with HDB expected to launch up to 23,000 BTO flats this year, Christine, what impact will that have on the wider housing market?
Well, I think that it is good that HDB is ramping up the supply of BTO flats, especially since more units will be released in the mature estates. For the non-mature estates, the completion period is relatively shorter at around 3 to 4 years. So these factors will give assurance to Singaporeans that despite escalating prices for private homes and resale flats, and in view of the rising inflation, there are still affordable housing options out there. And we expect more cash-strapped Singaporeans and those who do not mind waiting for the completion periods to turn to the BTO flats. And this will help to alleviate some price pressures on the resale market since some demand will be diverted to the BTO market. And for the PLH model flats, we are also expecting many Singaporeans to be drawn by the hype and chatter surrounding these flats because they may attempt to apply for a unit if they see their friends or peers doing likewise. And going by historical trend, I think this batch of Singaporeans who are applying for BTO flats are quite fortunate because flats in prime locations are actually quite hard to come by, and their long-term investment potential may far outweigh the stringent criteria that owners of PLH model flats will be facing. So in total, I think that the launch of this batch of BTO flats is very good in terms of addressing the concerns that Singaporeans may have about escalating home prices, as well as the shortage or supply shortage that we are seeing right now in the market.
Well, thanks very much to Christine Sun, Senior Vice President of Research and Analytics at OrangeTee Tie. In other Singapore news, the voluntary tuberculosis screening is underway for residents and business owners in Block 2, Jalan Bukit Merah. When the Straits Times visited the screening site at 9 a.m, a queue of more than 10 people had already formed, but the crowd thinned out before 1 p.m. Residents who spoke to ST say they were not alarmed about the TB situation. On until next Tuesday, the free screening comes after 7 people at Block 2 were diagnosed with TB between February and March. In other news, the CPF interest rate for the ordinary account will remain at 2.5% a year in the third quarter of 2022. And the concessionary interest rate for HDB housing loans will also be unchanged at 2.6% a year. And following Japan's announcement yesterday that it will allow in tourists from 36 countries, travel enthusiasts and industry players in Singapore are already making their travel plans. For instance, travel agency EU Holidays says more than 200 people have made bookings, with families comprising the majority. For SA Tours, it's prepared itineraries to Japan, but the prices are still unconfirmed because airlines have yet to provide group rates. Well, speaking of Japan, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has just wrapped up his 4-day visit to the country, and before heading back, he shared a few thoughts with the media, which included our Japan correspondent Walter Sim. Well, Walter joins us now. So in the meeting with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida, PM Lee spoke about a range of topics as well as Japan opening up again. Walter, on that particular front, what did they discuss?
Well, according to Prime Minister Lee's account of their bilateral meeting, he did convey to Mr. Kishida that many Singaporeans were very anxious and very excited about being able to visit Japan again for the food, for the skiing, the scenery, and that the flights are bound to be full when that happens. So yes, the topic did come up in their discussion.
In fact, yesterday when I met Prime Minister Kishida, I told him there are many Singaporeans who used to visit Japan regularly and are very anxious to come back to Japan again for the food, for the skiing, for the scenery, for the religious tourism to the Buddhist sites. And we hope that you will open up. And once you do, I'm sure the flights will be full. And I think he heard me.
But Mr. Lee also noted how Japan is due for an upper house election in July. Mr. Kishida would be wary to take any drastic measures before that, especially since media surveys, including one by the Mainichi newspaper last weekend, showed that whilst 43% of respondents were in favor of relaxing border controls, as high as 41% were against the idea. Still, Japan has been taking baby steps, and Mr. Kishida announced on Thursday that Japan would start accepting tour groups from 98 countries and regions, including Singapore, from June 10. But these numbers are still likely going to be quite limited since there is a daily arrival cap of 20,000 people a day. Notwithstanding that, however, Mr. Lee told reporters that he was hopeful that after the July election, if the COVID-19 situation in Japan remains stable, that there is a very good chance of Japan opening up further.
Well, on another issue, Singapore is bracing itself for a possible supply disruption of fresh chickens from Malaysia. We understand PM Lee made his first public comments on this in Japan today. Walter, what did he say to the media about that?
Well, Prime Minister Lee said that it is regrettable but not entirely surprising, especially since supply chain disruptions and surging inflation have placed many governments around the world under pressure. Mr. Lee noted that supply chain disruptions had in fact occurred earlier in the COVID-19 pandemic when there was a shortage of masks and PPEs that led countries trying to seek to secure enough for themselves, and this included measures such as interdicting and requisitioning supplies. Mr. Lee stressed that, however, Singaporeans have no need for alarm in the current situation, as the country has been for several years now building up buffer stocks and resiliency whilst diversifying its sources.
The answer to it is not what we do now, but what we have been doing now for several years, which has been to build up our buffer stocks and our resiliency and diversify our sources, so that if any single source is interrupted, we are not unduly affected. And if you can't buy chicken from one place, well, you can get chickens from other countries. And this time it is chicken, next time it may be something else. We have to be prepared for this. It's a very unsettled world, and inflation is a problem, cost of living is a problem, but in the scheme of things, actually many more disruptive things can happen than just some price adjustments. And we're seeing some of that now.
It may be chicken now, but it may be something else the next time. All in all, he said that Singapore has to be prepared, come what may.
When that was Walter Sim there, our Japan correspondent in Tokyo. Elsewhere, US President Joe Biden is set to host K-pop stars BTS at the White House next week to discuss Asian inclusion and representation, as well as to address anti-Asian hate crimes and disinformation. Now, last year, amid a spate of anti-Asian hate crimes in the US, including shootings at 3 Atlanta area spas, BTS spoke out about their own experience with discrimination. After nearly 2 decades on air, Ellen DeGeneres ends her final episode of her talk show with an emotional goodbye and somewhat of a mixed legacy. No doubt she leaves as the queen of daytime TV, but the show was dogged by scandal in recent seasons, as ex-employees accused DeGeneres of presiding over a toxic workplace.
To all of you who have watched this show and supported me, thank you so much for this platform. And I hope that what I've been able to do in the last 19 years has made you happy, and that I was able to take a little bit of pain away from a bad day or anything you're going through. And I hope I've been able to inspire you to make other people happy and to do good in the world, to feel like you have a purpose. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If I've done anything in the past 19 years, I hope I've inspired you to be yourself, your true, authentic self. And if someone is brave enough to tell you who they are, be brave enough to support them, even if you don't understand. They're showing you who they are, and that is the biggest gift anybody can ever give you. And by opening your heart and your mind, you're going to be that much more compassionate. And compassion is what makes the world a better place. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I feel the love, and I send it back to you. Bye.
You can visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay, and I'll see you soon on The Big Story. Have a good weekend.